All right, let's get back to the task at hand. Okay, first of all, now here is where we start to develop the function or the purpose of behavior. This is where we want to determine. On page 18, there's only 3, and I gave you the clinical terms earlier, but it's really quite simple. Attention, power, and control fall under the first category. And some of the research suggests multiple areas of purpose, but it's too hard to remember, and all of them fall into these 3 categories. So the first is attention. Second is escape or avoidance. Escape or postponement of unpreferred demands, and finally self-stimulation. We talked about that as well. And then there's the 4 environmental variables. The whole point is if you look at behavior by topography, it's very inefficient. Old model, you go to a problem-solving meeting, they tell you 10 problems that you have to solve. New model, take those 10 problems, categorize them by function, and all of a sudden now you're focusing on 2, maybe 3 areas maximum. And then you look at the context. Where does, the behavior occur, and how can we manipulate and control it? The goal of functional behavioral assessment, or understanding and finding the reason, is listed on the bottom of page 18. Identify proactive strategies to prevent rather than suppress undesirable behaviors. So if Eric doesn't play well with others, we're going to figure out ways to encourage that he does play well with others and teach him the skills necessary. We're going to provide the structure. We're going to make sure classroom teachers develop ways to approach him in a meaningful, positive way. Number 2, we're going to make sure the interventions are logic related to functional categories. And then finally, we're going to teach replacement behaviors. That is what we want to do, is the ability to teach replacement behaviors in a systematic and a positive way. And we're going to talk about that in more detail. Now, if you turn to the bottom of page 19, classifying behavior by function is far more efficient, because when you change one behavior in a functional category, all of the behaviors in that same functional category are reduced. That makes it more efficient. Old model, we're going to focus on 10 things, develop an IEP that reflects all 10. Now we have to focus on one that's the most problematic, or the most egregious, or the one that people are most frustrated with, and the other behaviors that are classified in that same area will be reduced automatically. We're going to make sure that we have achieved the appropriate analysis of behavior when you can exercise control over it. That means I can set the environment up in such a way so that the behavior will occur, or I can set the environment up in such a way that it won't. And when I say environment, I'm talking about context. I can manipulate, you can manipulate and control the environment so that behavior is more likely to occur, or that it's not going to occur. That puts it under our control 100%. What are the circumstances that will make it happen? What are the circumstances that will make it not happen? Remember, you have achieved the appropriate analysis of behavior when you can exercise control over it. Replace the behavior. This is about teaching new behaviors that you want to have the child to engage in. They need to be taught, they have to replace the problem behavior, and they have to serve the same function as the problem behavior. So if a kid engages in inappropriate behavior to obtain attention, I've got to teach them a replacement behavior that will be as efficient as that behavior, but will also obtain attention for them. Because if I get attention in an unacceptable way and it's more efficient and reliable for me, and you're teaching me a new skill and I'm not getting that attention, I'm not going to engage in this skill. And it must be differentially reinforced. Replacement behavior is about new behavior. It's not just the absence of the problem behavior, it's the presence of an appropriate behavior. Look at the old model, down on the bottom. Fighting, old model, we gave detention. Blames others, tell the kid he's never going to blame somebody. Hitting, we want him to stop. That's a bad model. Turn to the top of page 21. Motivation versus engagement. What do we want to do? We want to change it. So if a kid lies, the goal is not to stop them from lying. Do you see? The goal is to teach them to tell the truth. Recognize the fact that when you tell the truth, you get acknowledged more specifically than when you don't tell the truth. Swears, old model, stop the kid from swearing? No, new model is teach him appropriate language so that he expresses himself in a meaningful way. Doesn't turn in any work, punish him for that? No, turn in all assignments. Do you see the proactive process that we're going to engage in a meaningful way? Replacement behavior is what you want the kid to be doing, not stopping the behavior. What do you want the kid to be doing? Do you see where I'm going with this? You got to ask them, and people say, well, I just want them to behave. Well, the point is, what does behave look like? And where do you get that from? Look at the rest of the kids. 90% of your kids are 95 or 85 to 95 are doing what you want them to do. That's what you want kids to do. You want to get attention? This is how you get it. If you want to be able to get out of work, this is how you get out of work. All of those kind of things. Does that make sense to you? That's the key. Reinforce the behavior. We already talked about it today. We've got to be far more non-contingent in delivering reinforcement. I got to catch kids being good. Why? Because kids can't create order out of disorder without a compensating process. If you can't get my attention in a positive way, Scott, I've got to catch you being good. And you do good things. And teachers say, well, I don't think the kid is ever good. And I say, well, when do you think? Because they're just, throw me a bone here. And when I say to them, reinforce that, then I say, how can you make that happen more often for that kid? Non-contingent positive attention is giving a kid something for free. And we're going to talk more about this in interventions in just a minute, about how do you increase the fidelity of that. We've got to start turning this around in a positive way, and remember that it gives as much to the giver as it does to the receiver. And then reduce behavior. If you turn to the next page instead of consequences, there's 6 different techniques that are most powerful in changing behavior. Extinction, which is ignoring. Differential reinforcement of alternative competing behaviors. Timeout, which is not a punishment, by the way, if used therapeutically and used at the bottom of the intervention. Response cost, basically giving something up that you've earned, but making sure you never go to ground zero or in the negative. Overcorrection, making it right, but make it even better than right. And finally, the whole idea of punishment. Punishment is an important process here. We need to have kids pay the price for what they've done. But that's not the end of the story. That has to be paired with the pro-social positive replacement behavior. And I want you to think 2 things. Consider that students are misbehaving in your school because they don't know how to behave, they don't have the skills to behave, and they haven't been taught the appropriate replacement. And you're not going to talk about elimination of inappropriate behavior. I want you to think reduction. I want you to think dimensionally when you start to talk about the status of changing procedure. The 8th R is reevaluate the procedures. What process can you have to evaluate whether or not you're making progress? There's a great little model called goal attainment scaling. And it simply is taking the goals of your behavior plan, embedding them in it, establishing a baseline, and then putting it on a scale of 1 to 3, -1 to 3, and a +1 to 3, and having a teacher or an individual rate a child as that goal over a period of time, simply by using a Likert scale. It quantifies the person's perceptions of the child's skill acquisition and automatically can turn into a scale. And if you can see the picture of it, I don't believe I put a copy of it here, but if you email me, I can surely send you one. It simply shows you how it's plotted. Simply plots that the child is doing better here at a scale of 1, or even really better at a scale of 6, or really bad at a scale of a -6, so that you can see over a period of time how the child is doing incrementally in terms of acquiring the skill you want them to obtain. Goal attainment scaling directly relates to establishing the goals in your IEP or in a behavior plan for regular ed kids, and then putting that as the baseline, and then establishing, once you've developed your intervention, what the implications are for that child's progress, and then to be able to graph it so you can visually see, are we on the right path? Very simple to do, very efficient, powerful, very meaningful process. We need to have procedures to monitor progress. The goal here is growth, by the way. You're no longer, and I want you to look at this continuum here. Here's a continuum. Old model is that Eric Hartwig is here on the continuum. We spent all our time figuring out how he was here. You're no longer interested in where he started and where he is. What you're interested in is, where is Eric on that line and where do you want him to go? Do you see? The problem is in here, not over here. We don't care about the cause. What we care about is if he's here and we want him to be here, how are we going to incrementally get him to that point that we want him to be? Measurement is about growth. It's about recognizing, we go back to the question that Tim said this morning. Yes, we have a standard of expectation of comparability, but everybody plots differently. So when Eric Hartwig is attentive 20% of the time, I want to know, is he 25% of the time? Is he 30% of the time? And in what context and what environment? And I want to compare there. Or if he decreasing the frequency of an inappropriate behavior while I'm replacing it with the behavior that it's my target. Is that in growing, and is the other one decreasing? Again, never going to go away, but the goal is to have more appropriate behaviors than negative behaviors, and you have to have some way to measure whether the child is progressing in the fashion you want to. If you're not going to take the time to do data collection before you intervene, and you don't use data to derive, don't even bother. Don't even bother to develop an intervention, because you're just wasting your time and energy. Because you're never going to know if what you did made a difference for that kid. You got to know. You got to establish your baseline. You got to collect your data. You got to develop your intervention, and you got to measure whether you're successful or not. Everything we do in life is like that, isn't it? Everything we measure. If you're got a 300-mile trip, You know we do consciously. I've done 100 miles. I got 100, excuse me, I have 200 to go, or I've done 50 miles and I've got 250 miles to go. We do things in increment. It helps us establish where we are at. And what comes from success, even if it's modest, is to be able to prove to people what you're doing is making a difference. Isn't that true? What keeps us saving money when the bank account starts to grow? Isn't that true? What keeps us doing things to try to lose weight when we start to see some kind of implication? How do we know that we're managing this in a way that shows that the child is moving in the direction that we want them to move in? Keeping in mind, the goal is to tuck point that bell-shaped curve so that they're more like the average than not. We're not going to make them perfect. That's not the goal. We want to see them grow within the range of acceptability so that their behaviors don't look any different than any other kids in the classroom. Maybe they're manifested different, but they're still acceptable. Cool? Rules and regulations, statutory language, code of regulations, federal law, discipline plans. But let's talk about research. If science is rejected as untrustworthy, and I want you to read this with me as I read it, not connected to the ideology that initiated the policy, empirical evidence is neither sought beforehand nor consulted after a policy has been instituted. This insulation from evidence virtually guarantees a never-ending supply of policies and practices fatally independent of reality. Alternate ways of knowing them, especially those based on an individual's experience, are often preferred because it's the only knowable reality. Without an empirical foundation, top of the next page, ideological debates represent what Sol said way back in '95, a conflict of visions. One side, the vision of the anointed, and the other side, vision of the benighted. Think about this for a minute. People defend the methodology they know the least about. Isn't that extraordinary? That means you believe what you want to believe even when it's not true. I mean no disrespect when I say this. Building principals in many schools believe that school suspension changes children's behavior. Many people believe that punishment changes children's behavior. No data to support that. It changes, it may stop it, but it doesn't teach what you want. When you send a kid home for an inappropriate behavior, you need to understand that the connection between what you want them to do and what they're doing has to be made by you. These kids don't make that leap. We have to make that leap for them. When we send them home, let's just be realistic. We need a break. Okay? The kid needs to know that what they did was wrong. But why not at least add a cost response component and say to the kid, listen, for every day that I send you home, you owe me 2 at the end of the school year. Okay? Recognizing the full well that I don't want to be there at the end of the school year either, okay? So what I do is build a behavior plan that says, but you know what? When you're in school, if you do this and this and this, you can earn time off from the 2 days you owe me. Do you see? Turn a cost response into a positive outcome. Many ways we can manipulate the time lost, time made up. How many people here don't show up for work? You show up for work, don't you? And if you don't do your work, you either have to take a day off or you have to make it up. Isn't that right? The time that I'm here away from my office, I flew in from New York on Saturday and went to the office for 5 hours on Saturday afternoon. I'm going to do the same thing next weekend. I need to make up some of this time, okay, even though it's a vacation time. The point is that we have to understand, kids need to understand, you lose time, you owe us time. We don't want them to do that, so we figure out a way to positively reinforce them by good behaviors that can wipe away the debt that they owe us. Think how powerful that is. Pre-Mac law, grandma's principle. You do this for me, then I'll do that for you. But research. I find it interesting. How many people have ever read any of my work? I see that just pisses me off. But you know what? Every time I ask somebody, that's exactly what it is. Who really cares what people write? I already told you 90% nobody does. So we're really going to do evidence-based. Well, I would tell you, I was really frustrated with this. I write all this work, and then nobody reads it. And you know, you start thinking, well, who cares? And I finally realized why people don't read stuff, okay? Because you read crap, okay? You believe in crap, and that's how you apply your principles. And let me prove it to you. I was in Minneapolis for a 10-hour layover because I got delayed. So I'm wandering around the Minneapolis airport and finally wandered into the bookstore. And there was a shelf of magazines. And on there were titles to make you want to buy the magazine, okay? What they do, tell me if this is not true. They have a title that sort of tries to suck you in, and then they have a lowercase title that says to you, by the way, if that wasn't enough to convince you, here's what I'm really going to do it. Let me prove what I mean. Bon Appetit. I honestly never heard of Bon Appetit. I didn't know it was a magazine. I now know that it is, okay? Anybody ever heard of Bon Appetit? See,
Of course we know that.
Right, yeah, you know that, but you don't know any of my work. So Bon Appetit, so here's what they do. They say, build a better biscuit. Do I want to build a better biscuit or not? I'm not so sure I want to spend $15 for this magazine just to build a better biscuit. So then the subcategory, and it's usually in color, okay? This one had parentheses around it. Hint, it says, it's the cheddar. Oh, so I can build a better biscuit. It's the cheddar. 17, a magazine for young girls. These are true titles.
I know that one too.
8, do you?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, well here's what came from it. 875 ways to look beautiful. Hey, can we be frank here? Man, if you need that many, you're in trouble. That's all I'm saying. Here's one for people my age, Maturity. I never knew there was a magazine, Maturity. Title, Let's Feed the Bears, it says. And then the subtitle says, When Idiots Hear the Call of the Wild. That's not a good idea to feed bears, apparently, okay? Glamour magazine should be in a brown paper wrapper. Man, when I was a young man, I would have loved to have Glamour magazine. True title. The guy said to me, sir, are you going to buy any of these books? I said, no, I'm doing research here. This is action research. Glamour magazine, 25 sexy secrets of men's bodies. 25. I mean, I can count 1 or 2, but I'm telling you, 25 is way out of line. And 2 from Cosmopolitan. This should be banned for young boys. 40 girly moves that make boys melt. 40. Here's the practice hint. Show up. Cosmopolitan, true story. His secret pleasure zone, map included. If you need a map, you're in trouble. You know what I'm saying? But here you are, you buy this crap, and when they say everything is going to be evidence-based or research-based, I don't believe it. I don't ever believe it. What I'm going to do, all my future articles I'm going to write to these magazines. I'm going to write to Bon Appetit. I'm going to say, build a better biscuit, and at the same time, build a better kid. Something like that, you know, some kind of catch into there that I can do there. Glamour magazine, 25 ways to fix your body and fix the kids' behavioral patterns in your classroom. I got to figure out how to do this. I just don't know. But you buy this crap and believe it, and when I tell you what the research says, I just don't think so. Do you know that teachers will, first of all, empirical evidence is not enough to convince you to do the right thing. Secondly, teachers will do an intervention for 2 or 3 days and then they'll lie about it, that they are doing it. And why is that? What culture have we created to make them feel like that's what they have to do? Do you see where I'm going with this? My point is this. We have to have a conversation about what we value. Way back to the discussion we had early this morning. What do you believe about behavior in your school? Compliance and obedience? Then you're going to be about punishment and it's going to be linear. If you believe about responsibility and problem solving, you're going to start teaching children different things. And then you have to say, what procedures are we going to follow in our district to do something different about those kids? Do you see what I mean? That's a conversation that you have to have before any of this stuff that we talk about. What do we believe here? And I will tell you, I've been in schools, and I know fire and brimstone, we take charge. We want our kids to be controlled. I'm not interested in working with places like that because they're not going to make any difference in those kids' lives. When kids are punished to behave, they get a different sense of what it is we expect of them, and oftentimes apply those same principles to people that come after them. A better model would be, what can we do to help them see things a little bit more clearly? What can we do to fill that void? Remember, you can't create order out of disorder without a compensating process. How can we help them compensate for the skills that they don't have and that we can help them? Just like academics, we want you to have the skill. We want you to be far more successful. That's the part of what we need to do. We need to clarify what we want, and what you're going to see here is I'm going to show you a little process. I think we've kind of logged out for a minute, must have cooled down. So I want to show you something, an example of how you measure kids universally. Universal screening is about seeing the health of the system, not just about identifying target kids. And this is a screening process I developed in 1972, and then it became online just a couple years ago. And it's based on a standardization sample of about 7,000 children. It's about showing the health of a school. So Denise is going to put you on, and what I'd like to do is let's log in if we could. Sign in at the top up there. It's bestuniversalscreening.com if you ever want to check into it. And we can go through why you do this. So they had 245 students in this subscription. We're going to only screen 218 of those kids. And of those, they screened 136. They're 62% complete at this point in time when this stopped, all right? That means that of those 62% they've screened, 133 are core. So far, 61% of the kids they screened are where they're supposed to be. Why is that important to know? This is the health. These kids are on the trajectory of where you want them to be. One is strategic support, so small you won't see it, but it usually pops up as yellow. And 2, intensive support. These are kids that require high interventions. These are the kids that are in the red. They still have 38% of the kids to screen, but when they're done, what they should see is this line will move over here, generally, and about 85% of the kids are going to be doing what they want. Now, why is that important? I said before, health is clear. We've quantified, and universal screening means you screen everybody, not just gatekeeping. You don't just refer or screen target kids, you screen everybody. Why? Because you want standard comparability. Now, let's go into one of the student reports. If you would go up to the top where it says reports, right here.
Okay, you do see that your thing is...
Yeah, that's okay.
And?
Let's do view classroom reports. Okay. Now you can toggle classes, you can toggle a district, you can toggle individual students. But I want you to know, if you bring this up, whatever that's called, when you bring it up, what does that mean when you scale up? Yeah, there we go. Toggle up. Nope, that's good. I just want to share this. And again, this is all information that has been redacted, so you don't have to worry about confidential information here. But what I want you to take a look at, if you would, is just at this, and if you keep the process on there, all the kids toggle. Why is the bell-shaped curve so important? Well, because everybody 85% and below is doing what we want them to do. Remember when I talked about populating? They all populate up here because of the way the system works. Blue is boys, pink is girls. But you can see who your target kids are instantly. Toggle on one of these students over here. Can you put the little arrow on that?
Yeah.
Okay. You can actually do it right here on this site if you want to do it right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There. This automatically tells me what their C-score, P-scale, and G-scale score are. C-scale is conduct, things that you see externalizing. P-scale is internalizing. Turns out, interesting enough, we know who kids are that have mental health issues in our school. We can quantify them, but we don't intervene. Why? Because they don't hurt anybody but by themselves. They hurt themselves. Kids who are conduct disordered, everybody wants to rally the troops. Kids who have mental health issues generally are left to their own device. But why is this important? Well, let's go over here. Take a process right here. Pick one of these kids. Right there. I want to know how this young man is doing. It'll come up in a minute. It takes a little while for it to process, I believe. Yes. There you go. Here's the scale. Teacher doesn't rate these constructs because it would make them biased. They are operationally defined. This is a kid who's normal. Do you see this? Look at the C-scale. Perfect. Go up a little bit more if you could, Denise. So conduct, no problems.
I'm working on it.
Okay. Good. P-scale, is there any internalizing behaviors? Nope. Kid is good. Up a little higher. Take a look at the standard score below 85, 86%. Our rank is, this kid is right where you want them to be. Is that important to know? Yeah, it is. Absolutely it is. Why is it critical? Because I want to not only see that kid today, I want to know in 5 years what happens if this child takes a turn. And I go back longitudinally and find out for 4 years everything went well for this kid, and I thought everything would be online, and all of a sudden something happened. Maybe it's context specific, right? Maybe there was something terrible that happened, traumatic to the child at that point in time that we could look at differently and redirect. Now I'll go back to the top dashboard, if you could. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. No pressure.
If I were down like that, I could not get back up. I tried it before and it was so hard. There are student reports. Now let's do one more thing and then I'm going to get to the interventions. Oh, yeah, student reports, good.
Oh, it's...
Yep. That's okay, it closes. There's a window of time where you can screen kids and then it closes. If you don't get your kids screened in this window, you're done. There we go. It ranks everybody. Now watch, if you would toggle it up a little bit so we can see. This is why people should use Macs. Yes.
I need a mouse, that's my problem.
No, yeah, that's true. That
It
doesn't want to go up?
Go to the thing at the top and pull it down.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, good deal. Now look at what I built into this process. These are all the kids that are ranked from the lowest score to the highest score. So they're all green. You see all the green chips? Those are all kids that are core. It's good to know. But let's say I want to know who my target externalizer are, kids that are in your face, in your space. Just touch C-skill. All of a sudden I know where my time is. Do you see the difference there? And here's the beauty. If you would go back to the dashboard or to the top or whatever you call it at the top. Yeah. Go to interventions. I don't want to be so bossy. But the interventions are based on scale, primarily the G scale. You can be far more predictive of children's behavior by scale, not by individual behaviors, because it all rates, as I talked to you about before. Here's all the interventions that are available. There's no interventions there, so let's just take a look at all interventions. This kid was fine, so there's no suggestions for you to consider. It's not prescriptive, but there it is. What I've done, and we're going to talk about these in a minute, these are the top 10 interventions, part of the interventions that I think are appropriate. Let's take ignoring, for example. If you take a look at ignoring, it's a way to get rid of behavior you don't want. When you ignore a behavior, purposely pay no attention to actions of what they're doing. You do not ignore the child, only the irritating behavior. They get the message that even though you love him, you do not like and will not give him satisfaction for the downward behavior. I'm going to change some of that language, but in the end it defines what ignoring is. But here's this prescriptive intervention. Push ignoring once over there. I need to teach people how to do it properly. And that's the process that's there. It's a step-by-step process that's built into this. All it's does is designed to point you in the right direction for intervention. So that's it. So that's the best. It's about universal screening. It's not, by the way, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just saying to you, you have to screen all your kids, whether you use the best or anything else. Why do you do that? So you know at the healthier schools, and there are many good rating scales that are available to do this, so please start looking to that. But the last part of this conversation today is intervention. So you can log off of that, and let's turn back to our paper. Any questions about the best at all?
What's the cost of that for a school?
$1.98 per kid, and a $500 introductions fee for just getting things set up, $500, $750, something like that. But every kid then is screened twice. For the cost of an app or an iTunes, you can get a kid screened twice a year. So turn to page 27, because this is where we're going to end the day. Thank you very much, Denise, for doing that. So 27, you've seen this before. It's our fulcrum and our processing. Thank you so much. When we develop interventions, we want to keep three things in mind: safety, accountability, and character building. All of those things are critical. So as we start to develop interventions, we need to decide what to use. So if you turn to page 28, in addition to the best pointing you in the right direction, which you don't need to have, by the way, you can do this on your own. Here's the top 10 interventions that your teachers have to know in your school. And I don't mean just your special teachers. I mean every teacher in your system. And if they know these techniques, they're going to be more likely than not to be able to change children's behavior. Let's talk about number one, relationships. We've gone over and over this today, and relationships are about building relationships with kids who have no relationship with others. Two-edged sword, as I said before. The key here is what we call wag more, bark less. And I'm going to teach you what's called the Oslo effect. Unconditional positive regard. My kids wanted a dog when they were growing up, and I said, no, no dog, no dog. We had kids, I didn't want all that stuff in the house. Finally, two of my kids went away to college, and the last two got two to me, and I said we'd buy a dog. But we weren't going to buy the dog. We actually decided to go to the pound to save a dog, okay? And we got a mixed breed as a border collie and something else. I'm not even sure exactly what the other category is, but he was a very smart dog. And when we got him, I told my kids, you're going to take care of him, not me, okay? But I also added one more thing, because I know that's the classic standard way. I talked to the dog. And I said to him, listen, Oslo. We named him Oslo, by the way. And if you say it fast, it sounds kind of like a swear word, but it's Oslo, okay? O-S-L-O. And I sat down with him and I said to him, listen, Oslo, you and I aren't going to have a relationship. I want you to make sure you understand this. I said, I'm never going to pet you. I'm never going to feed you. I'm never going to play catch with you. I'm never going to pet you. Do you understand that? And I thought he did, because as I'm talking, I could see his tail wagging, and we had great eye contact. I said, Oslo, you and I are going to be like two ships passing in the night. Now, fast forward. My house has a mudroom. You come into the garage, the door opens automatically, and you go into mudroom, because in the winter, we have winter just like you guys do, okay? And we go into the mudroom, and the dog is on the other side in the house. And I know he's there because I can hear him. His tail is, when he knows I'm there, his tail is pounding against the closet door, which sounds like a drum. And I know he gets more excited because it goes a little faster. I open up the door, and there he is. But I told him, you and I, no relationship. And I walk right past him. I do this for day after day after day. Why? I told him. I made it very clear. You and I, right? One day I'm having a very bad day at work, and I'm just tired. I come home, and I just want to forget about work for a while and just want to just relax. And I open up that door, and there's that dog. And he's wagging his tail and welcoming me. And I thought, what the heck? So I pat him on the head. And I noticed that when I did that, he responded in kind, to the point that he shaped my behavior till he left us. We had him for 13 or 14 years, unbelievable, to the point that when I'd get into the mudroom, I would scratch on the door and know that he's on the other side, and he would really get his tail going, you know, and then I'd pounce into there and open the door real quick, and I'd say, Oslo de la Renta. I'd add a little class to his name, you know, de la Renta, the fashion designer. And he'd pounce on me, and we had a great old time. My point simply was this: he never gave up on me. Unconditional positive regard. You see? No matter how much I ignored him, no matter how much I didn't want to engage with him, he just kept after it day after day. Wag more, bark less. That's the message your teachers need to have about relationship building. Wag more, bark less. It is their job to unconditionally accept children, greet them every day, acknowledge who they are as a person or an individual, and even though they may push you away. And why would they push you away? Why? Majority of their adults in their life have been rejective and punitive. They think you're going to be like that too. You need to change that. Like Oslo changed my behavior, same thing that a classroom teacher does. Relationship building is the responsibility of the child, of the staff member, not the child. Our obligation is to be sure that they have the skill set necessary to make that happen, and that's the teacher's job to do that. Number 2, humor. This is a preventive one, and one of the things that we talked about before. Humor, the relationship building is prevention, clearly, and this is preventive as well. What have I tried to do today? Why have I used humor?
Engagement.
Engagement? Okay, good. Chances are, if you laugh and you like what I have to say, you're going to want to do what I want to do. Isn't that right? We start to develop a relationship a little bit. Most of you, I'm assuming none of you knew who I was before today. Is that probably true? Obviously, you've never read my work, so I know it's true, okay? But I feel better about you. Have we connected in some way? In this short period of time we have, haven't we? I'm not saying everything I say has to be agreed to, but you're more likely to pay attention to me than not. Why? Because one of the things is humor. I wanted to build a relationship, and I use humor to make you think about things, to look at things differently, because when you can laugh, it frees you up a little bit, does it not? Look at humor can be an intervention. It protects feelings. It protects relationships. It redirects emotions of the behavior. How many times have you seen people personalize what kids do as though the kid did it intentionally to hurt them? I don't think kids do that. I don't think kids set out. How do I know that to be true? Well, how many people here remember their first child going away to school, and the child coming back from kindergarten, finally one day you say to the child, well, you need to do this, and the child says to you, oh no, that's not what my teacher said we should do. Your teacher is now smarter than you. Do you know what I mean? The connections that are made between the teacher and the kid are incredible when they're little. What happens when they get to late elementary, middle school? What do we do to them to not want to be there or to do the things that they do in order to be acknowledged? Well, they want a place in the sun. And if we don't teach them the skills we want them to have to get that place in the sun, they're going to engage in inappropriate behaviors. And humor is about laughing at ourselves, using humor not in a negative, confrontive way, but in a way that's healthy and useful. There are things that I said today. I made fun of everybody that I could, and it's not intended to be politically correct. It's about looking at ourselves in a different way. Even gallows humor. I really would not want a kid to run out and get hit by a car. Clearly, there's no doubt about it. But sometimes there are funny things that happen in our schools that you just have to laugh about. When people do things that are so egregious and negative, you have to say, that's really odd and funny. And most of the time it is. When you see a big man chasing a little kid, when you see a kindergarten boy, you know, getting a person crazy, you have to laugh at that. How is it that these little kids can learn that skill to make you act that way? And what you should be thinking is, this is a good, doable kid. Because if they can learn inappropriate behavior, then they can learn what I want them to learn. And so when we laugh about it, it depersonalizes it. When we move away from it, it changes the whole trajectory. Humor is a preventive intervention. Page 30, positive reinforcement. All I'm going to tell you is that we need to teach our teachers new ways to do acknowledgement. And you know we have to train them and we have to give them a way to do it. And here's my methodology. I say to them, let's do this. Take some masking tape, if your custodian will allow it, and put a few X's on the floor. And every time you step on that X and you see you're there, your name is again?
Erica.
Erica. I see Erica. I say, Erica, I really like having you in this class. Do you know how important it is to have me see you every day? It means a lot to me. Thanks. Every time I see the X, bang. You see it forces. Or if that X doesn't work, put a little band, rubber band around your wrist. And every time you remember it's there, target somebody that you see and say, your name again?
Sue.
Sue. Sue. It's great. I love the way you look today, and that outfit is gorgeous. I really appreciate that. Something like that. Some positive, non-contingent, descriptive, and you're going to see why in a few minutes. It's got to be descriptive. Why is that important? Well, because it's hard to focus on being nice. We just expect everybody to be good, isn't that right? It's hard to say something nice to somebody. This forces you to do it. Put a dot on the clock if that doesn't work. And every time you look at the clock because you're wondering how long the day's going to be, think, aha, I've got to talk to Jackie. I got to say, Jackie, how's it going? And I'm not going to do it from 3 miles away. I'm going to do it right here. And I'm going to say, Jackie, I like having you here. Appreciate it. I love that color. Purple is one of my favorite. I know it seems squirrely, but I love purple. I'm going to tell you that, okay? I might even touch her. What if she's oppositional and she says to me, I don't care what you think about me, and I don't care if you like the color on me, okay? And tries to engage me in a conversation. Ever tried to give a compliment to somebody and they didn't take it very well? Well, maybe they don't think they deserve it, or maybe it's so rare they wonder where this is coming from. But if you know you have an oppositional kid, then you use what I call a drive-by reinforcement, okay? Use her name, whisper something, Jackie, yeah, I really like that outfit, looks great. And I walk away from her and she looks at me and she says, well, I don't care what you think. She's talking to my seater. She's not talking to me. I don't care because I've already told her what I like and everybody else heard about. Do you see what I mean? I keep moving on. Excuse me. I don't care what her reaction is. I want to make sure she gets that. Non-contingent positive reinforcement is a prevention, and it's got to be schooled, by the way. You need to train staff to do this. Here's a management tool. 31, understanding resistance. Keep in mind, if you talk about resistance, as you can see it, that's where drive-by reinforcement or deferring control, leaving notes. I like, instead of saying, hey, it's time to go out for recess, it's better to use it and defer it to an inanimate object. The clock says it's time for recess. All of a sudden, I've depersonalized it, so the kid can't hurt my feelings. It's the clock that says it. Do you see? Do you know that most behavioral problems occur under 2 conditions, transitions and in content? Think about this. We had a person, I didn't finish this thought this morning, I apologize, presented at our mental health summit, first one we'd ever done. And she said schools are frightening places for some kids. And when she first said that, I was kind of, whoa. And then I realized she's 100% correct. Imagine what it must be like for a little kid that comes to school looking for regulation, looking for something that they don't have, and what they get is a teacher and a person that's in their face and in their space. As chaotic as it is from their home environment, or as frightening. We have to set this up so our staff are regulated so we can regulate. And the way we do that is recognize that opposition is not opposition. Opposition is they don't have the skill set. You got to enter into a kid's oppositional worldview to effectively change that dynamic. Decide which rules are negotiable. Provide choices. Choices are about having kids do the two things you want them to do, not about one thing you don't want them to do. I had a neighbor that he had a son that wasn't coming out to help him in the yard, and he said, "Can you help me?" I said, "Sure, give him choices." And I thought I explained it pretty well. So later on that day, I'm out in the yard, and there he is, and he's by himself. And I said, "Well, where's your son?" He said, "Well, I did what you said." And I said, "Really? And he's not out here?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "I gave him choices." I said, "Well, what are the choices?" He said, "I either told him he has to come out and work in the yard, or he has to stay inside and watch TV." Okay, all right, let's talk about choices a little bit more definitively, okay? You can come out and work in the yard now for half an hour, or if you come out in an hour, you got to work in the yard for 2 hours. The choice is yours. Come out now, be done early, or come out later. But one way or another, do you see there's no option except to do what you want them to do? That's what choices are about. Enter into their oppositional worldview. Confrontation. Honestly, we'll talk about dealing with assaultive, destructive behaviors, but confrontation is about you. Think about this. I want you to think about this today when you go home. There's invariably going to be something when you go home that's going to irritate you at your house. Okay? There's something that somebody didn't do that they should have done, and there's something that somebody promised to do that they haven't done, or they haven't done it as well as you like, and you're going to be a bit irritated. What I want you to do is I want you to clinically analyze your own behavior. I want you to think through what your reaction would have been before we talk today. You know, how you might escalate it or how you might make a comment. And then what I want you to do is purposely figure out how you can walk away from the problem for the moment. I'm not suggesting that you don't come back to it. I'm just saying when something confronts you today, whatever it might be, I want you to consciously think to yourself, what could I do differently now to make sure this doesn't get any worse right now? What are the things I might do? Could I walk away? Could I say, "Excuse me just a minute, I forgot something back in the car"? What are the ways you can deflect the momentary crisis? And I want you to think through your head about how you might do that. And the same thing applies to a situation if you didn't get control of it. Let's say you go home and you can't do that. If you have a problem, what I want you to do when you walk away from the problem, I want you to think about what could you have done differently. You know, think about how your actions might be different so that you didn't escalate that process in a meaningful way. When you're involved in a case at school, when a kid sets you on fire, what could you do to debrief? What are the things I could have done differently? How could I set the classroom up differently? What could I have done to ask the kid how to do that differently? Next time I will do this, the time the kid engages that behavior. Page 34, praise, management. It's not like positive reinforcement, but it can. But praise is about being descriptive. It's not about saying good boy, bad boy. It is about being very descriptive, and you're going to see why in just a minute. Non-contingent reinforcement I talked about before, and negative reinforcement, by the way, which is as powerful as positive. And I explained that in the handout. But praise is about being very descriptive about what you want that child to be doing, or what they're doing is exactly what you want. So it's no longer good boy, nice job. It's going to be, I like the way you're sitting and holding your pen and paying attention. I know that's a lot of words, but you're going to see why in just a minute. Not only have I told you what I like, but I've told everybody else in this class, and you're going to see why in a command statement, how to do a precision command. Being descriptive takes away the fact that it's a value judgment, because when you say good boy, good girl, it's like, well, if I don't do it other times, am I a bad boy or bad girl kind of thing? Where descriptive praise is about the actual activity. We talked about not using constructs. Don't do that in praise. Be very specific about what it is that you like, because you tell the child what you want to do. Praise is a two-edged sword. Keep it in mind that as you get closer to a kid and acknowledge them, some kids don't know how to accept it very well. Why? Because it's not been something that they've done. We need to be far more cognizant of that. Think non-contingently. Turn to page 6. Getting compliance. We talked about the command versus the request. But what I want you to do is to really turn to page 38, because this is the precision command. 6 and 7 all are connected. We talked a little bit, but I want to do a precision command. There's 3 steps to precision command, and I want to show you how this works, okay? Your name in again?
Lori.
Lori, okay? Now, Lori is going to be my target child, okay? Now, I know she's kind of oppositional, but I'm going to try my precision command, and this is how it works. There's 4 steps. let me back up for just a minute. Do you have kids of your own?
Yes.
Good. Can I ask you a question? Do you ever call them to dinner and they don't come?
Yeah.
Okay, good. What happens when they don't come when you call them the first time? How does your behavior change?
Well, I'd probably call them again, but a little more agitated, like, are you gonna eat?
Yeah, so it's a linear. Do you see what she did? She asked them, they didn't come, so her change of behavior is that I'm a little more agitated, I might be a little more vocal, the tone might change, and the impatience might be more directed, okay? And you might add a comment like, aren't you ever going to eat, kind of thing, all right? What happens if they still don't come?
Well, eventually we'll eat without them.
Okay, eventually they'll eat without them, okay? So you really haven't accomplished your goal, have you, really? We think, aha, that's natural and logical. You call them, they don't come. But really, you wanted them to come and eat when you were eating, wouldn't you, right? Because invariably what happens many times is when they don't come to eat in that time, they come later on, and you probably say, well, if you must need something to eat, and you give them something, right? Maybe not as much as they would before, but you basically, excuse me, reinforce them to figure out that when you call them, you don't really mean business. Same thing in our schools. I ask you to do something, but I don't take the time to get your attention. I'm not going to be very successful. So what's the difference between that model versus what we're going to do here? It's going to have 4 important components. Number 1, Lori. Lori?
Yes.
Great. I got her attention. In a socially acceptable fashion, by the way, culturally acceptable as well. White Caucasian, eye contact is good. Other kids of color, not a good idea. But you know when a kid is paying attention. You'll never call your kids for dinner until you know you have them, okay? You've got to make sure that they're in the range of the thing, and you need to be close to them. I'm not going to say to Lori, 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 Lori. I'm going to, Lori. Good. I got her attention. Now, I'm going to give her my expectation. Lori, I'd like you to put your pen down, stand up, and come to the front of the class. You don't need to do this, okay? But you wanted to. Could you feel that power that I had? She was ready to jump up. I was very descriptive, didn't I? What did I tell her? Put your pen down, stand up, come to the front of the class. She got it all, didn't she? You see? 2 things that I did differently under this old model. We're connected. I'm being very descriptive about what I want you to do, which you might have done too, but I'm just being very even-toned in it. Okay? And now I wait 10 seconds for compliance. I don't sit there and go like this. I walk away as though she's going to do it. 10 seconds is for eternity. But if I really want her to comply, I can wait for 10 seconds, can I? Of course I can. She comes to the front, 4th step. Lori, thank you for putting your pen down, standing up, and coming to the front of the class. A lot of words, isn't it? But you'll see why in a minute. All right, let's suppose she doesn't do it. You change the command statement by 2 words. Lori, great, she's attending to me. You need to put your pen down, stand up, and come to the front of the class. Wait 10 more seconds. When she comes, Lori, thank you for putting your pen down and coming to the front of the class. Standing up and coming to the front of the class. I've accomplished it. Now, what happens if she still doesn't do it? Do you think that could happen? Okay, and I should know this, shouldn't I? Because I'm trying to get an oppositional kid to comply, but I know she's still not going to work. Remember, you're going to practice this on the compliant kids first, by the way, because you want to get good at this, all right? But now I know she didn't do it after 2 times, and this is the key to understanding. Now I enter into oppositional worldview, and I say, Lori,
Yes.
I've changed my mind. You don't need to put your pen down, stand up, and come to the front of the classroom, but thank you. And I walk away. If she's truly oppositional, what will she do? Come to the front of the classroom, and then I'm going to own that. And this is hard for teachers to do because they think, well, if she didn't come the first time, I'll be darned if I'm going to say anything now. No, you need to own this, okay? Thank you for coming to the front of the class. I guess I do have something for you to do. What happens if she doesn't? No harm, no fault, because I told her she didn't have to. I win. Do you see? She did exactly what I wanted her to do or not. I controlled the outcome of her behavior. She thinks she's controlling me. I'm controlling her 100%. You see the different dynamics that are associated with compliance is about if you want a kid to do it, make it clear what you want. And give them time to comply. I've had parents that say, or teachers that say, okay, everybody be quiet. And they don't even give them a chance to be quiet, and they're all over them with another command statement. Isn't that right? What's one of the things that I did when we started to come back from our break? Did anybody see what I did? What did I do?
30-second warning.
Right. Right? And did I really count the 30 seconds? Of course I didn't. But did you notice at 30 seconds there was still a buzz, wasn't there? And at about 20 seconds it got a little quieter. When it got down to 10, quiet. When it was at 5, like that. And by the time I got to 1, which could have been immediately, you were already in place. It's all you need to do is just change the way the outcome is simply by how you change your process. Remain calm, yet be assertive. You want to create an environment that children understand that you're going to be calm and supportive of them. If they see you going off on some other kid and getting angry and mad, it increases their anxiety and dysregulates everybody in your class because they think, wow, if she's going to be that way to Sue, what's she going to do to me when it's my turn? You know what I mean? Man, that's not healthy, right? A better one is I model, Sue's in my face and in my space, and she can say what she wants and it doesn't hurt me. I'm not saying we're not going to come back to it. You foreshadow the class. See, right there, she gave me a thumbs up, okay? And I say thumbs up to you too, all right? Yeah. I'll double that. When someone does something you don't like, you redirect the crowd and you come back to it. Name again, I'm sorry.
Roger.
Roger, I never asked them. That's why, how would I, yeah, Roger. Okay, Roger, this morning remembered that. Let's say Roger says something to me, shove it up your ass, okay? Okay? All right, that's a bad thing to say. Well, obviously, if I try to manage that, it's just going to escalate because he's already ready for fire or bear, right? So he says that, and I say, whoa, that would be hard to do. You know, there are times there are people that use words and say things that are just unacceptable, and it makes me feel bad sometimes. What have I done? First of all, where are your eyes? Where would they have been if I'd have been over there? Right there. Tell him he's got an audience, everybody is honest, but I'm taking it over here. And all of you are thinking, what's wrong with that man? Why isn't he going to punish him? And as I start to work the crowd and talk to all of you, I've de-escalated, and I come back and I say, Roger, loud enough for everybody to hear, but not too loud. Roger, you and I are going to have to talk tonight, a little after school. I'll see you in my office. Oh, try not to worry about it. You see? Raises anxiety in a different fashion, a different way. I've told you all that something's going to happen. You're going to think I'm going to do a lot worse things than am I really going to do. And you know what? Really, I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, Roger, I like having you in my class. I got to tell you, today was uncomfortable for me, and we need to figure out how to make this right. That was not acceptable. But I wasn't going to embarrass myself or you in that class today. What can we do to work on this? And clearly, because I know Roger is an oppositional kid, I'd be having this conversation before this situation. This would just be a follow-up. And by the way, I would foreshadow to everybody in my class, I want you to know, there are things that work on me. And I'm going to tell you, if you swear at me, you say bad things, that works on me. But I'm going to let everybody in this classroom know that this is how I'm going to handle it. And when it happens, I want you all to be assured that there will be consequences that occur. Unknown consequent events are far more powerful than known. If I say to Patty, right? Yes. If I say to Patty, you keep that up, and I'm sending you to detention. She thinks and figures out, okay, I'm either here or I go to detention. You know? If I say to her, you keep that up, something's going to happen. And she says, well, what? And I say, I guess you'll just have to wait and find out. An unknown consequent event is very, very powerful. Changes the way it looks, because if you don't know what's going to happen, it's not makes you ill at ease. Do you see what I mean? Versus when I talked before, if kids know that every time I misbehave, this is what's going to happen to me, it becomes reliable. Precision command, very powerful. Any questions about that? Ignoring. Ignoring is a management tool. It comes into the behavior when it occurred. You need to learn to ignore, and we're not very good at this. And ignoring, by the way, does not generalize from one environment to the next. And people can't ignore all day. So what you need to do is give classroom teachers permission to ignore in discriminate ways. That means, can you ignore this child's behavior from 8:45 to 9 o'clock? And can you reinforce alternative competing behavior during that period of time? And most people say yes. But if I tell you to do something, Scott, all day, you're going to wear out. That's why people don't carry through, because it can't. It's impossible. We're going to teach a child to discriminate that there are certain times that behaviors are this way and certain times the other way. And then we're going to broaden it. We're going to help generalize that skill to a bigger environment. I know this seems counterintuitive, but I will tell you this. The reason interventions don't work with fidelity is because people cannot keep doing it. It's hard work. You feel like you're in a tunnel, and if you're the person giving the intervention, you just, It's weary. It's just hard to do that. But if I say to you, give me 15 minutes, anybody can give you 15 minutes. And then when you have a little success, you build on that success. Does that make sense to you? Much better, longer process, but works incredibly effective. Ignoring describes exactly what you need to do in terms of the process. Remember, you ignore the behavior, not the kid. The use of the cue. How many people here remember Carol Burnett? Anybody old enough to remember that? What did she always do at the end of the show? Okay, and what was she doing when she did that? Yeah, her grandmother, her mother, wasn't it? One of the two. One of the two. Well, think about this. Imagine that you have a problem with Carol. And I say to Carol, listen, every time you and I are feeling like things aren't going to be right, I'm going to, well, tug on my ear. And I want you to know that's a message to you. You're kind of getting a little crazy here, okay? You're talking to your neighbor a little too much. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to say that this is you're the only person that's going to know this. And when I'm talking, and you're talking to your neighbor, I might go like this. That's a message to you and to only you. I don't want to tell anybody else in the class. I just want you to recognize it. And then, by the way, Carol, I want you to be sure to tell me what I was missing. Could we, if I'm not meeting something, your needs in some fashion or some way, is there some way we can talk about that on the outside? Use of a physical cue is a very powerful and very neat instrument that can change the dynamic of behavior. The cue is also, I've done snakes. People don't like snakes in the class. Cockroaches are good. Mice and rats, sometimes people are curious about them, so that doesn't always do it. And it's got to be small, and it's got to be something that's creepy. Think about this for a minute. Ever been in a meeting where something funny happens, unexpected, and it just changes the flavor of the meeting instantly? I had a very difficult parent that we had that she came in, honestly, to the meeting eating cheese popcorn. And I could tell you the whole story another time, but the fact of the matter is that she was a difficult parent, and when you see somebody eating cheese popcorn, and they have that cheese not only in their fingers, but she had more facial hair than she was entitled to. She had an orange ring around her mouth, and I'm not making this up. She had a piece stuck to a real long hair on her, and I look at that, and I start to laugh, and not in a rude way. And I look at everybody else, and they're all kind of sitting here like this. And then she realizes she has it, and she starts to laugh, and it broke the ice just like that. Think about this. Ever been in a situation where something funny happens, it just takes the biology and mediates it? Final thing, and you can read this on your own because we're in the last 5 minutes, and you've been incredibly attentive, by the way, so thank you. So I'll let you out 2 minutes early. Context. I told you there are 4 variables that are completely under your control: the environment, physiology, the setting events, and a curriculum. Context. Take a look at your classrooms. I promise you this. I could come to any one of your classrooms and I can tell teachers ideas if they could change their behavioral patterns simply by moving some things contextually. It's amazing what you can do. How many people here know kindergarten teachers? Okay? Really, we should torch their classrooms. I don't mean that in a bad way, but you know what? They keep everything. You know, it's not just one alphabet. It's got 32 different alphabet options you have in all the books. We got to kind of reduce the visual stimuli in some of our classrooms and recognize that less is probably better. Stimulation is good, but overstimulation for target kids can be counterintuitive. I can walk into a classroom and I can tell you 10 things you could do tomorrow that would make it better for you and that kids. Do the same thing in your schools. Take a walk through. Take a feel of that and look at it. What do you think is sort of odd about this class? What could be a little bit better? You would be surprised about how you can change the dynamic. Finally, in your handbook is a little thing at the end. It says a written agreement. And it's a little late for the 2014-15 start of the school year. But I want you to sign this, and I want you to keep this for yourself, because once you sign this paper, you've committed to at least try some of the techniques we talked about, and you've done it in front of man and God. And I want you to be sure that when you sign it and date it, that you're saying, I'm going to change myself a little bit, maybe based on some of the things that were said today. I'm going to agree to making a commitment to do something different. And once you sign your name, then you are held accountable to yourself and nobody else. And your friends will see that you have signed it today, and you've now made a commitment to be a different person than you were when you started this morning. Wow, we had a lot of stuff, and we stuffed a lot in there. I appreciate your attention. I hope this was helpful to you. This work is a Sisyphean responsibility. You keep pushing, pushing, pushing. But the key here is it's all incremental. If this is bad in your school And it never is like that. And this is good. Anything incremental towards good is really what you want to do. Does that make sense to you? Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation, and have a great school year. Thank you for everything, okay? Thanks.